All right, let's take a look now at section 29 and the ablative of price. English and Latin both use numbers to define what something is worth. English often uses a prepositional phrase, and we often see the preposition for in this phrase. Look at the examples provided in your book. I bought this dress for $30. The store has a 2-for-1 special. He traded in his baseball cards for money, or you could even stick something else in there, like for bubble gum, right? In contrast, Latin will place the price of a thing or the value of a thing in the ablative case. Let's look at that first sentence on the board. Here we say pecunia is in the ablative case. So I have my subject, my direct object, my verb. Pecunia, the amount, the price, the value of the thing, is in the ablative, for money. I've written the next example on the board as well. Hanc sestertium sex millibus eimi. I bought, hanc, this thing. Okay, here we have the demonstrative acting as a pronoun here. I bought this thing. Sex millibus, for 6,000s. Notice sex is a cardinal number. It cannot decline, but it's paired with millibus, 6,000s. Sestertium, of sesterces. Notice this one is a genitive. A sesterce is a unit and amount of Roman money. So I bought this thing for, here's my ablative price, 6,000s, sestertium, of sesterces. Now again, we say that same expression, the of sesterces, of money, of coins, in English as well. So it makes perfect sense for it to be in the genitive here. So it's very intuitive, but I just want you to know that it's coming. Ablative price, often partnered with a genitive. Now look down at the next little note. Some adjectives may also use the ablative of price. Let's look at this list of adjectives. Magnus, great. Parvus, little. Vilis, cheap. Plurimus, much. Minimus, least, very little. Each one of these you can see might be used to describe an amount, how much of something. So they too can use the ablative of price construction. And if they are using the ablative of price construction, they appear in guess what case? The ablative. So let's take a look once again at these two sentences, these two example sentences, and let's take out our ablative number. Let me get my eraser. Take out the ablative number and let's substitute in one of these adjectives. Okay? I might say, let's say, I bought, the farmer sells the oxen magno, for a lot, for a great amount, okay? Because it's a substantive adjective, we're going to kind of go with the neuter here. This one, let's see, I bought this thing. Let's go the opposite here. For very little of sesterces, for only a few sesterces perhaps, okay? So once again, we can take these same adjectives and substitute them in for this ablative of price. Now let's look at this caveat. When the adjectives are used in the ablative of price construction, they will also appear in the ablative case. We just talked about that. Let's look carefully at a few more examples and note how these adjectives appear in the ablative. And this is because, once again, they're reflecting the amount or the value of a thing. Seditiosum factum magno illis detit. The seditious deed, seditiosum factum, cost that man greatly. Magno, it's almost, well, it is being translated as an adverb. It's acting as an adverb here. Greatly, a lot. It cost him a lot. Now, something else I want to point out to you here is this phrase illis detit. You may recall that sto stare, a verb you first learned meaning to stand, can also be used with a dative meaning to cost someone. So that is why you see illi here in the dative case. Illis detit. It cost illi, that man. Magno, a whole lot. Look at the next example. Togam vili eimi. I bought the toga, vili, cheap, literally for a cheap price. But in English we would just say cheap. Let's move on to exercise 3 for some practice. Just like in exercise 2, I'm providing you a series of sentences this time in Latin, but I only want you to translate the underlined portion. That's because we're trying to hone in and focus on these new ablative constructions. So let's look at the first one together. All right, looking at number 1. He homines flores magno pretio amebant. Now once again, I'm not asking you to parse and label here, but I'm going to do a little bit of that just to get you through the thought process. Sometimes what I'll have with my students is ask them to label the sentence, but not necessarily parse everything, because I still want them to understand the relationship between how words are working in a sentence and what case that means. So looking at this, always find the verb first, amebant. Okay? Quid est subjectivus? What is the subject? He homines. So what you want to do is look for something that's plural and nominative, and that's going to be this group. So I'm just going to kind of put that off to the side. It's my subject. I really don't need to worry about anything about it. But that means that I have flores here. Flores could then before be what? The direct object. Now, flores, you may be asking yourself, it could be nominative too. Well, that's true. It's third declension. It could be nominative, so it could homines. Do I have a conjunction? Can I have a compound subject? No, there is not a conjunction. So one of these has to be the subject, one has to be the direct object. Typically in Latin, a subject will still come first. Of course, with poetry, that goes all out the window. So let's think about context. Quid significat amebant? What does it mean? They were buying. Now, what is more likely to be happening in a typical sentence? The flowers were buying the men, or the men were buying the flowers? Typically, unless maybe it's some twisted Alice in Wonderland type tale, you're going to have the men being the subject buying the flowers. So we're going to go with that one. And then I have magno pretio. Notice the endings here. What case is that going to be? In light of everything we've talked about, ablative. Okay? What kind of an ablative expression are we looking at? When you see a word like this, pretio, comes from pretium pretii, meaning price, you know we're talking about a price expression. So I would just label this price up here, right? So, flores magno pretio amebant. They were buying what? Flowers. Magno pretio. For a great price. Excellent. Continue on with exercise 3 on your own. Go through each one of these sentences. You'll notice the first 4 are Latin to English, and then 5 through 8 are English to Latin, doing the reverse. Walk through those carefully. Double check them with the teacher's edition key, and when you come back, we'll look at how to use numbers to express time.